Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to listen to our presentation. I'd like to thank the Arts Council, the CCMA, and the conference organisers for having us here today. My name is Gerardette Bailey, and I'm the County Arts Officer for Meath, and I've been working on the Kells Creative Placemaking, the Bigger Picture project for just around 10 years now. I'm joined today by fellow panellists, my colleague Loreto Guinan, who is the Heritage Officer for Meath and who has also been a lead on this project, and by Mark Smith, artist, creative director and founder of Kells Type Trail, and a driving force behind Kells Creative Placemaking project. I would like to begin by giving a brief overview of the project. Loreto will then discuss the regeneration and public consultation element a little bit more, and Mark is going to discuss the journey. Unfortunately, our fourth speaker, Deirdre Kinahan, can't be with us today in person as her Dublin opening of her new play Outrages tonight, but she has made a lovely piece to film for us, which we're going to show a little while later. So, sit back and let us take you to Kells. There's many definitions for creative place and creative placemaking, and the one that we have used is the practice that intentionally leverages the power of the arts, culture and creativity to serve a community's interest while driving a broader agenda for change, growth and transformation in a way that also builds character and quality of place. Kells Creative Placemaking is a long-term, ambitious collaborative project driven by a dedicated group of artists, community volunteers and local businesses working in partnership with the local authority, which aims to stimulate growth through arts, heritage and culture-led regeneration. It's a multi-partnership, multi-layered collaboration for the regeneration and sustainability of projects which will have a transformative effect. The project is about people, place and identity. At its very core, it's concerned with people, it's concerned with place, it's concerned with identity, and in doing so, explores the provision of creative solutions, investment and sustainability. It's committed to the initiation, support, development and delivery of quality creative experiences in the town. And these include festival development, community arts projects, artisan residence schemes, and the harnessing of the huge amount of energy, enthusiasm, professionalism and commitment to Kells regeneration by the community in its broadest sense. We just have some images here now of festivals and events which have taken place. This one is the Guggafa International Documentary Film Festival tent. Our next image is a beautiful montage of some of the Kells Type Trail pieces. Type Trail, which celebrates lettering as an art form, each year a word is taken and translated into a variety of languages reflecting the diversity of the community of Kells. Artists respond to these words by interpreting and creating a variety of artworks and large-scale outdoor temporary installation pieces which are placed around the town. And Type Trail runs for approximately 6 weeks, encompassing the Hinterland Festival and the Guggafa Festival. And the last image here is of an event which took place during the Hinterland Festival. The project has a large number of aims and objectives which fall under different headings. Programming. We aim to develop the cultural programming capacity of Kells, to leverage the power of arts and creativity for community benefit and economic gain through increased cultural tourism and job creation. Festivals, the support of festivals such as the Hinterland Festival, the Guggafa International Documentary Film Festival, Kells Type Trail and the Sound Food Festival. Young people. To develop activities and spaces for young people to be creative, for young people to come to be able to be creative and explore their creativity, and for young people to be silly, if they want to be silly and exploring that creativity. Social inclusion, to promote social inclusion through community arts. We want to provide venues through the conservation and adaptive reuse of 4 key historic buildings into the social, cultural and economic fabric of the town, and to establish Kells Printing Works and Ireland's first centre for typography, celebrating lettering as an art form. To increase the education and training capacity by developing an international and third-level training centre at Kells Printworks, and to develop international level film training programs at the Cultural Hub. We also want to create jobs and opportunities for artists, creatives, and the wider community. We have a number of partners. We actually have a large number of partners, and they fall into 3 categories. We have our core creative partners, our funding partners, and our strategic partners. Some of these are local, national, and international. And we're very fortunate to have strong leadership and vision in the festival committees, in our local organisations, and among the creative and wider community. So we felt it was important today to include a variety of images in today's presentation to try and give a sense of the vibrancy and the visibility of the project in the town. So this image is from the Kells Columkill 1500 Commemorations Illuminations project, whereby a number of images celebrating Columkill's legacy were projected on historic buildings in Kells for a number of weeks. And then these were projected on buildings and sites throughout the county for Culture Night. This project won the Best Newcomer Award at the Heritage Council National Awards last November. And this is actually Columkill's house in Kells. And here we have just a montage of various events which have taken place, exhibitions, concerts, film projects, and the background image is Kells Community Theatre, the St Vincent de Paul Hall in Kells. So our timeline, we've quite a lot of information and text on this slide. As a project, this has evolved since 2009, and there have been long gestation periods for some of these projects. There have been many milestones along the way, many events, many challenges, many funding strands and opportunities, a lot of which are listed in this slide and in the following slide. And just to highlight some. First of all, there was the establishment of the 3 festivals in Kells, Kells Type Trail, the Hay International Festival, which was in Kells for 3 years and which evolved into the Hinterland Festival of Arts and Literature, and then the Gukgafa International Documentary Film Festival. The establishment of Kells Local Heroes, who play a major part in the physical regeneration of the town and who were instrumental in the delivery of the 5 bigger picture conferences. The Heritage Council Kickstart pilot, which was the Solving Our Own Problems weekend and subsequent report, the Creative Ireland Culture and Creativity, and the County Arts Plan public consultations, which have all informed our actions. Other highlights are the discovery of the Victorian printing works, which was a game changer in terms of our ambitions regarding letterpress print, and then also the Town and Village renewal funding that we received. On to this one. The Fáilte Ireland support of the Boyne Valley Tourism Centre at the Courthouse, the Irish Architecture Foundation Reimagined programme in Kells, and the council purchase of the Sawmill Studio building for conversion into Kells printing works to house the presses and collection, and the appointment of a design team for same. The buy-in and support of successive management teams and the success of the Kells Creative Place, or RDF application, which amongst other things enabled essential works at the courthouse and the opening of the Cultural Hub in June 2019. And the courthouse had lain empty for a number of years. In the first 6 months of opening, and this was pre-COVID, we hosted 4 festivals, 47 events. We had 9 schools events with over 300 children attending. We hosted 51 professional artists through a series of group shows and solo shows, and we had 3,000 plus attendees. We also secured Saoilse Films as our anchor tenants for the Cultural Hub at the Courthouse, and we provided Hinterland and Gukgafa with creative space occupancy. And Saoilse Films' new film, Young Plato, just won new Best Documentary at the IFTA Awards, so we're delighted about that. It's important to remember that, as with our key partners above, Kells Creative Placemaking is no one event, organisation, individual group, or even department within the local authority. Rather, it's the sum of all its parts. Each part has an important and distinct role to play, and each strand has its own unique timeline, funding, and story. Just to sum up my part here, it's a working, relevant, and current example of the local authority partnering with stakeholders and communities to co-create sustainable, adaptive solutions which marry opportunity within creative industries to the local deficit. It does this, or we try to do this, in a considered and fitting manner, which dovetails Kells' cultural legacy and rich tapestry of heritage buildings with its current cultural, economic and social landscape, with the aim of achieving viable regeneration and continuous growth. And now I'd like to hand over to my colleague Loreto, who will discuss that regeneration and the process for same a little bit more.
Yep.
Thank you, Gerardette. A key catalyst for Kells' creative placemaking project was a strong, very strong community leadership, and particularly the vision and the ambition of Kells' local heroes, who began back in 2015 a series of 4 conferences which looked at how architecture and design, how culture, arts, how biodiversity and community can transform a town or a place. And this series was called The Bigger Picture, and it drew on and invited experts to come to Kells and visit and share their knowledge under each theme. And each conference was attended by over 200 people, and there was huge community buy-in and interest in, and also a big discussion about the ambitions for Kells and what the future of the town held. Also, that was all deeply embedded by a really strong sense of place of Kells, celebrating the rich heritage that exists there, the built environment and the community all coming together to look at that. And Kells is one of 29 towns in Ireland which forms part of the Irish Walled Towns Network, which was set up by the Heritage Council back in 2005. And the purpose of that network was to look and work with the walled towns of Ireland to create them to be better places to live in, better places to visit, and better places to work in. And in 2017, the Heritage Council and the Irish Walled Towns Network held an open competition to select one of the towns as the location for a new national pilot called the Town Kickstart Initiative. And the purpose of this pilot project was to take a broader approach to heritage-led regeneration. And it would hope then that that approach and bringing together all those different stakeholders and that would have both short-term and long-term benefits for the host town. And there were 5 main components to the project, and Kells was selected as the location of that national pilot. And it was streetscape conservation scheme, training for retailers, training for the owners of historic buildings, and also then a coming together of all of the people in the town for a bespoke workshop called Solving Our Own Problems, a regeneration workshop. And we also then enjoyed the support of a project manager from the Heritage Council who mentored us throughout the process as well. The streetscape works comprised of 25 buildings within the historic core of the architectural conservation area of Kells. And the owners of those buildings all came on board, and we had great support through the local heroes then as well in terms of getting that buy-in from the community and from the owners. And they became part of the conservation work schemes. And each building then was looked at. There was eligible works that the owners could apply for in relation to maybe historic ironworks, upgrading some of the windows, some rendering works on facades, some minor painting works, conservation works to fan lights. But each building of the 25, the facades of each building of the 25 were also painted. And it was important that the paint scheme, while working as an individual building, but they also worked as a collective and a streetscape. And these are just some of the buildings I've just selected just to give you a highlight of before and after shots. And again, this was something that the owners and the community worked very much in tandem with the local authority. They employed a team of local painters who got involved in the scheme and also worked through the local suppliers and local hardware shops as well. And a second element of the Town Kickstart project was a special format of a workshop that was devised by the Heritage Council called Solving Our Own Problems. It had been piloted in 2 towns, and Kells was the 3rd town nationally to do this. And really the idea was that this would be a democratic process, asking questions, finding out what is important to the community, and creating realistic actions that overcome some of the challenges. And Kells, like many Irish towns, was being confronted, had its challenges, changing demographics and lifestyles. There was an increase in commuting, and again, bear in mind, this was done in 2017, so we had a lot of outward commuting every morning to Dublin from Kells. There was greater, I suppose, in terms of automation of traditional sources of employment, climate breakdown, biodiversity, all of those issues that were faced on nationally, also we were faced with at Kells. But the people, I suppose, of Kells recognised these challenges and were determined then to adapt and try and create, I suppose, an environment where they could get together and discuss these problems. And as part of this process, it went over a 2-day process. It was over a weekend. There was a seminar which started on the Friday evening. There was 5 mentors who came to the town, and they were in the fields of arts, retail, tourism, public realm and greening, and also traffic management and parking. And the 2-day schedule began with a series of presentations and then moved on. Then for the following morning there was a walk around. All of the community groups who were active in Kells were invited to take part. They all went on the different workshops and came back then together, and they generated then the report that you see here, which is really just exactly as it is, exactly as what the community came up with. The local authority were involved, all of the different partners were involved. And that was a very structured way, but it was a very participative process, and it gave a blueprint then of what people wanted in the town going forward. And that led on then the following year. There was a call out for a new initiative under a joint initiative by the Heritage Council and the Department of Housing, Local Government and Heritage, and it was Historic Town Initiative. And again, the whole aim of this was to promote heritage-led regeneration of Ireland's historic towns, and Kells was one of 6 towns that participated in this scheme back in 2018. And this was a continuation of the work we had done in the historic core. We moved down a little bit further down the street then and took in maybe another dozen buildings. And again, these are some of the outputs of the paint scheme and the facade works that took place under that scheme. And also under that scheme, this is one of the key cultural buildings that received funding under that scheme. And again, we had Fáilte Ireland who had moved in on the ground floor there, and the Historic Towns Initiative funding allowed us then to do some work and in terms of retrofitting some fire eggs and open it up to the public so that we could use upstairs then as a cultural space, and it became a venue for artists and a venue for events, as Gerardette has just went through the numbers of the events that happened there. So it's a fantastic resource and a fantastic building that was in the town, and again it's adaptive reuse of these buildings as well. So from a climate perspective, from an embodied energy perspective, from a sustainability perspective, much better to be doing this. That moved on then to a much more ambitious project then when we're looking at the capital programme and looking at 4 key buildings that were identified to be transitioned and to be adaptively reused and to new cultural spaces. The Sawmill Studio, which is now, the first two buildings on the list here are currently in progress now as part of our Phase 1 capital programme under the Rural Development Regeneration Fund. And that's the Sawmill Studios, which is being converted through to the Kells Printing Works, and then the Courthouse, which you've just seen. And the next phase and the ambitions for the next phase then is the Convent, which will be for artist studios and artist spaces, and the Convent Chapels then, which will become again another venue, an art house cinema. Collaboration is important at all levels. It's important both within local authorities and between local authorities and the community and all of the stakeholders. And while myself and Gerardette are here presenting today, it's also want to acknowledge there was huge support within the local authority from the senior management team, various chief executives, the members, and all of the different departments who fed in and have worked on this process over many, many years. And that support and that ongoing support has meant that there has been huge engagement both within the local authority and between the local authority and the community. The other thing that we've been kind of careful in and trying to make sure as well is that the project aligns with local, regional, national development plans and strategies. It's very much embedded within our county development plan, county arts plan, county heritage plan, and again in terms of the hierarchy of policies, those speak to the regional planning guidelines, the national planning framework, and also national strategies for the Arts Council and the Heritage Council. And that's important in terms of funding as well, because all of our funding is plan-led, so it is important that that exists as well. And without that, and I just wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge the funders that we've had over the years, and we have and to acknowledge their support really, because again, all of this wouldn't be possible, and particularly the regeneration work, without major investment from our funding partners. Very thankful for the Department of Rural and Community under the RRDF programme, under Project Ireland 2040, the Creative Ireland, the Fáilte Ireland again, who had come in and again have taken over the ground floor building of the courthouse, the Arts Council, the Heritage Council for many, many years of ongoing investment, and obviously Meath County Council itself. So I'm just going to hand over to Mark now, who is going to
this is where the formality changes.
Take you a bit further. So thank you very much.
Right. So, thanks, Gerardette. So, now you've heard from the arts officer and you've heard from the heritage officer. Now you hear from somebody who's just a community artist working in the town, from the town, and what we would say is of the town. My background is in community arts. I work with all the different groups in the county that would be on the fringes of society. And what I do with the art projects and with local heroes, all the community groups in the town, is reconnect with their community. 10 years ago, Kells was a very, very bad, dilapidated town. And the Chamber of Commerce in Kells decided they wanted to apply for a TV show that was run by, I think it was Rory Quinn. Yeah. I think it was Dirty Old Town or something like that, was it? Yeah, and Kells put together a submission to see if we could be part of one of them towns. We didn't win. I think Drogheda won in our area.
I think so.
Drogheda got started with it, and then they ran for maybe 6 months, or they fell apart after that, right? Kells has now been running for 10 years. We decided we weren't going to stop. The first thing we did, we got all the different community groups together in a local hotel. We broke it down into different sections, and we asked every table to answer 5 questions. What you wanted your town to be, what was holding it back, how you could help, how would Kells look in 5 years' time. So we asked all these basic questions, and we got the answers back. From that meeting, a group came together. That was the formation of Kells Local Heroes. It was a body of volunteers, and it's the same in any town throughout the country. It's always the same small handful of people that do the crossover of all the different community groups, be it the GAA, be it the Badminton Club, be it the Tidy Towns, the Pride of Place. There's always a small number of people. We would call these people the doers. Not the talkers, but the doers. And this group got together, and the first thing we decided we would do was, the town was very badly run down. There was no sense of pride. It was a commuter belt town. People were just commuting to Dublin, coming home, not enjoying the town. They weren't walking around the streets. First thing we decided we'd do was, as a group, in 2 cars, drive around the town, make a list of all the derelict sites, unsightly buildings, and list everything that was visually wrong with the town. The visual element is very easy to fix. It is a matter of getting groups together and going on with the help of Meath County Council and saying, listen, we ended up with 65 properties in our first list. So 65 properties, and with a painted scheme within Meath County Council, they were prepared to supply the cost of materials. With that, we had to go and we had to track down the owners of every property. Now, some of these properties would have been bought up in the boom by investors for long-term advancement, and they never even visited Kells. They just let the buildings run down and become dilapidated. And from that, you had 1 or 2 whole streets totally run down. These people didn't care, weren't from the town. So we contacted them through auctioneers and landlords and stuff like that. And we got all they had to do was write on a piece of paper that they gave us permission that we could paint the front of the building. We weren't going to do any major work. We weren't doing any plaster work. We weren't going to fix that. We're just going to give it a lick of paint. And with that, once we got that permission, then we could draw down the funding for materials. First day, we decided 10 years ago we would take on a small shop front. We would take on an old bakery. We would take on a bank and an old lampshade shop. There was 5 properties we took on. On the first day we started, we had about 50, 60 people come out. We had scouts, we had girl guides, we had everybody. We had ladders going everywhere, right? And we tackled it. First negative reaction was all the painters in the town were giving out, you're taking our jobs and all that. We didn't take anybody's job because the buildings we were doing, they would never get paid for doing it. They were just being dilapidated. So the first day, so we did 5 buildings, we got momentum. In the eyes of the council, in the eyes of everybody, it meant that we had proven ourselves. And the whole journey over the last 10 years is about proving yourself at every step. It's taking on small projects, it's delivering. You build up a CV of delivering. You build up a CV of getting your grants for your funding. You deliver on your grants and your funding. It's documented. You work with a different department within Meath County Council. Meath County Council, or any county council, will work with you. They can't do it by themselves. For us in Kells, it has to be community driven. It has to come from the ground up. Nobody else is going to do it for you. No outside body is going to come in and say, we're going to transform your town for you. Because what will happen is you lose the community. If somebody else comes in and tells you, this is what's going to be done, the back of the community will be up straight away. Who are you to tell us what to do? So if it's community driven and it's linked to the community groups, that's what's been successful for us. We as Gerardette and Loreto said, we decided we'd have a series of 5 conferences. And the conference were asking the question, what do you want your town to be? What's the vision for your town? And we call that series The Bigger Picture. The first one was about town development and urban regeneration. And we went out, and it's a case of asking these professionals, would they come and talk at a conference, and we learn from their experience. So the first one we had Simon Wall come from Westport. We had, what's your man, Simon, no, what's the man, the Green Party TD for MEP?
Kieran Cuff.
Kieran Cuff came. We didn't know about these people, and they were very, very willing to come and talk and pick their brains. The second one, from an arts perspective, was how the arts and culture can transfer time. Now, the Type Trail is going to be going 13 years. So my background is in typography and lettering as an art form. And I was away from Ireland for a number of years. I was based in Paris for 15 years. And I came back and I decided our legacy and the heritage of Kells is built around lettering as an art form. That lettering and art form is associated with a shoddy book up in Trinity, right? Don't worry about that. We'll do it in a modern way. We'll create art installations on the streets of Kells. We'll use Kells as our canvas, and we'll get in artists every year to create art pieces based around the ward. The ward has to connect with arts, heritage, and culture. So that's been going for 13 years. Then we decided that with the Chamber of Commerce, with Geraldine Goffman and the guys, decided they would create the Hidden Literary Festival that brought over Hay to Kells, and then it became the Literary Festival developed in Kells, and it's still running to this day. On the back of that, then Good Gaffer International Film Festival came to Kells, and that's still running today. So you have all these professional festivals running in a small rural town that has a population of maybe 5,500, 6,000. But the good thing is, over the years, Kells is about an hour from Dublin. But what you found over the last number of years is young professionals who started their life off up in Dublin or in other cities have come back and moved back to Kells. Good schools, good community groups, good sense, and the sense of pride is back in the town. And it's where people want to bring up their kids. It's where people want to come out of the city and visit a festival. Don't always have to go to a festival in the city. They want to get out of the cities and come to Kells. And that's how we've been successful. We create a welcoming hospital place that you feel welcome, and you can walk around the streets, you can talk to people. It's not too big a place that people won't say hello to you. It's the old values of have been neighbourly and communicating and welcome. And that's what we do in Kells well. And so every year we've been building and building and building, and every little project we take on, we deliver. Kells is a much different place than it was 10 years ago. Now the people of Kells are very proud of their town, and they can see where it's going. I was listening earlier on to the girl who was talking about occupancy of buildings in town centres. We, as a group, the other night drove around Kells. 10 years ago we drove around, we've seen 65 properties. At this moment in time, there's 4 idle properties in Kells. And of that, I rang one of the property owners the other day. He said, oh, I forgot that wasn't done. I painted the front of it, I didn't paint the back. I'll have that done next week. That's 3 properties done. Third one is an old shop front. There's a girl in Kilkenny, she's writing a PhD up the shop front. She came down with me last week. She's going to do a report on that property. So that leaves us with 2 properties in Kells. We're punching above our weight, but we've got young professionals that move back to the town that have taken ownership of the town. It's the people of the town and the community of the town are delivering this with the help and engaging with me, the County Council, and with all the services, be it with the Heritage Council, be it with the Arts Council. We've built up a reputation of delivering. We engage, we talk, we communicate with each other. You're always going to get a few people that'll throw in a few negatives, but you'll pass no remarks to them. You know, the best advice I ever got over the last number of years is when somebody becomes negative to your project is, now this is a good one. If you're a postman and you're walking up the street and you have to finish your work, you can finish your work, you're meant to finish at 1, and you can finish at 1:30 if you finish up early. And you're walking up the street and a dog comes out and starts yapping at your heels. Do you waste 20 minutes fighting with that dog? Or do you keep going on about your business and finish a half an hour early and get a cup of tea early? You don't waste negative energy on somebody who's telling you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. You just go ahead and you do it, you know. I won't talk about health and safety.
No.
Because we do these things. But here we have a picture of a complete Victorian printing works. Every year there's a legacy programme that comes out of the type trail, be it we reinstated all the milestones and all the 9 roads coming into Kells for 2016 commemorative, or we've redesigned the street names in Kells. That Kells has its own typeface on its sign. But at one meeting of the Kells local heroes, one of these ladies lives down a street called Modlin, and she says, oh Mark, there's these old posters from the 1920s and 30s have been gifted back to the proprietors who would have paid for them in the first place, the families, maybe auctioneers or publicans or something like that, whose families paid for these posters to be delivered. And these posters were being gifted back to these people and these families. And I said, where are they coming from? And they're saying, oh, the old print works is still there down Modlin. I said, what do you mean? That's gone. That's gone a lifetime ago. So 5 years ago, we heard about this. And there was us celebrating lettering as an art form, right? And there's this complete Victorian printing book sitting in the building behind the house down Modlin that people had forgotten about. Bryony Finnegan, who was the last printer to work in these presses, went in for his lunch break on the 6th of May 1983 and dropped dead. His sister lived in the house in front of him, and she kept it as a shrine to him. Nobody knew this was here. Everybody assumed with the passage of time that they had gone. So for me, it was like, I remember walking in there, and Gerardette and Loreto walked in there. I was like, holy God, jeez, this is like a treasure trove. Like, I know it looks rough, and it looked rough with that when we walked in first. There was Zimmer frames and B-days and everything on top of them yokes. But these machines, there's 5 printing presses. They're dating from the 1830s, pre-famine, right? These presses are all letterpress printing presses, and we have, over the last 5 years, we've moved them all out of that premises because we had to. We've restored all 5 of them, nearly, for the 5th one's been worked on at the moment. That's a beam press, that's from 1830. That's RTE came down to film us doing that. We had a conversation with the restorers. We have all these little exhibitions, and we all have all these talks. We have talks like where we brought a conference of the best sign painters in the country to Kells. That was 4 years ago. Yeah. The people who were the sign painters in thing came, like Vanessa Power from Signs of Power. She came, Colin O'Connor came from Dublin, and then we had your man who had the exhibition over in Venice, Penile, where he went around and he photographed all the shop fronts and stuff around the country. They all came to Kells and talked about the art of sign writing and how it's moved into a new scale into murals and stuff like that. But it's all about lettering, you know. So the sign painters came, and I remember Colin rang me about a few weeks later. He was booked then in to go and give a talk up at Donegal, and then they were over and giving a talk in Dundalk. Yeah. And the boys and girls were saying, like, Mark, we used to travel around the country with our paintbrushes and paints. Now we're traveling around Ireland with USB keys, giving talks on sign painting. So we have all these talks and lectures in town, but it's all for the betterment of the town. What can we use to enhance the town? Through arts, through heritage, through culture. And that's what Kells is synonymous with. If you mention the word Kells to anybody, they automatically think of the Book of Kells. But it was a monastic town. It was a seat of learning. It was a seat of the creative arts. People from Eastern European and the Syrians, you think of the Book of Kells, you think of the carpet pages. They're based on the carpets from Syria. The North African fathers came up to Kells, and it was a centre of the creative arts. It wasn't just books, it was jewellery, it was sculpture, it was everything was coming and flocking to Kells to use these arts to wow people with the awe of God. That's what it was. And the Book of Kells was the ultimate, where it was the spectacle of colour. Spectacle of colour, spectacle of communication. Joe Soap never seen colour like this. Joe Soap didn't know what Latin was. They couldn't even read or write. But the only way they could get across the spectacle of the art was through awe. So that's what we do in Kells now. That's why we used illuminations last year for the celebration of the 1500. We projected on 5 buildings. We put flags, we put bunting. We created a whole festival field throughout the year. We recorded poets and sites and stuff like that around the county. But it's all from the community. A lot of volunteers are giving of their time willingly, you know. And we have Meath County Council that backs us all the way. We're very, very lucky. We're very lucky that we've built relationships with the arts officer, with the heritage officer, with the community officer, if we launched a greening plan, biodiversity plans. We've launched all these things. We delve into all the different fields, and we can see how these all come together to create a better place to live in. And it's that what transforms a town. People live there. People want to go out and shop. COVID helped Kells. People moved back. Young families move back. Very hard to buy a property in Kells now. There is new developments coming, but you don't want Kells to get too big. I remember coming to the arts conference down in Galway, or was it Limerick, where the guy who does Pagan Rave spoke. He's at that, were you? I think it was in Limerick, was it?
Which one, yeah?
Yeah, just before COVID. And he said, you know, with the Pagan Rave festivals and stuff like that, he was always under pressure to go bigger, create something more spectacular. But then if you go too big, you lose the essence of what it is that makes you great in the first place. You don't always have to go big because it's commercially viable to go big, but then do you lessen yourself by going bigger? Quality sometimes is more important. So that's what we try and do at Kells. It's all about quality. And that's where the letterpress machines are coming back to life. The letterpress gives you quality print. What we have now in Kells is, through the creative placemaking program, we've got 3 main sites that are going to be redeveloped. And I know there's a nice way of saying the ones for the incubation space for startups in the courthouse and stuff like that. But the way I describe them is, that's the clean arts. That's the creative writing. That's the design. That's filmmakers and stuff like that. The clean arts. The churches, I say, is for the performance arts and arts in residence. The sawmills is now will be turned into Ireland's first centre of typographic excellence. That's where I call it's the dirty arts. That's where you get your hands dirty. That's where you create. So that's all happening. The funding is in place. The funding is in place because we've proven ourselves over a period. It doesn't happen overnight. It's taken us 10 years to get to this. But by starting from the community, from the ground up, that's what's carried us. Because we've got the buy-in by the community. Nobody's telling us, we're doing it ourselves. But with the help of professionals, with the help of mentors to come and talk to us. So you're more than welcome to come to Kells. So that's really it. Everybody asks me, how do we do it? You just have to go ahead and do it. You know?
Yeah. Great. Yeah. Thanks, Mark. Great stuff.
How are we for time?
We're good. Our fourth speaker couldn't be with us today, so for those of you that missed it at the beginning, we have a lovely film that Deirdre Kinahan has made for us, just talking about creative place and what it means to her as a practicing artist and as a member of the community as well, because she lives in Kells.
Hello, my name is Deirdre Kinahan, and I am a playwright, and I live just outside the town of Kells, County Meath. And I'm really delighted to get this opportunity to talk to you about creative placemaking and the impact it's had on my career as me as an artist, in the way I make work, think about work, the people I work with, the stories I tell, and also the impact creative placemaking in Kells has had on me as a member of this community. I'm here in Kells Courthouse, which is a beautiful old building in the centre of the town that was recently refurbished and turned into a tourist office downstairs and a performance space upstairs. And I'm lucky enough to have made a number of works in here and done workshops in here and development projects with different musicians, directors, designers, sculptors, and other artists from around the county. But what I want to do today is to tell you the story of one particular production. And I am sitting here right now on the set of that theatre production, and it is called Outrage. And it's a new play that I've written that is about to premiere tomorrow on St. Patrick's Day 2022 here in the courthouse. And it was originally commissioned by Meath County Council Arts Office. But I think it's a great place to start in explaining just how Kells creative placemaking has impacted on how I make theatre. So this set, designed by Marie Kearns, with lighting by Kevin Smith, is part of a production that grew out of a story from the town of Kells. That's how creative placemaking works. Artists are cradled by a sense of support and connection, not only from the extraordinary national and local governmental departments like Heritage, Arts Office, Arts Department, Library Services, but you're also kind of cradled by the buildings themselves. And increased resources, increased support allows us to connect not only with each other, but with the stories and the people of these places. So Outrage is a play that focuses in on and explores the experience of women in the Irish Revolutionary period, and in particular, the Irish Civil War. When I was asked to write a play about the Civil War, I naturally wanted to kind of focus in, as is my instinct, on the personal story, the personal experience of ordinary people caught up in the heat of a moment. But I need to get a frame for that. And the frame came from the extraordinary story of a print works that was found here in Kells in 2016. A man called Riley lived down in Magdalen Street and ran a printing press. And one day he closed the door on his business in the sheds at the back of his garden, went inside, had a cup of tea, but unfortunately died of a heart attack. His house was left to his sister, who then left it to a nephew, and it lay there for a number of years. When the nephew came over to sell it in 2016, and he opened the door, which hadn't been opened for years and years and years, he opened it on a wonderland. There were 3 printing presses in there. There was 100 years of posters, leaflets, flyers. And it was an extraordinary moment that this find in the heart of a monastic town could speak to the town. He donated that history, that archive, those extraordinary presses to the town of Kells. And when I heard the story, it struck me, wow, I want to write a play about women in the Civil War. I want that play to be out of Kells and out of Dublin. I wanted to speak to the urban and the rural. What would 2 Republican women in 1922 who found themselves with a printing press at their disposal do? And that became the seed of my play. A play about 2 sisters, Alice and Nell, who are fervent, who are involved in the whole period of revolution. Alice marries PJ, who comes from the town of Kells, and the story swirls from Dublin into Kells. Alice is inspired by the character called Kathleen McKenna, who was a local lady who came from Oldcastle, County Meath. Everything in this play connects to something real. Everything in most of my plays connects to a real person's experience, a real person's story. Everything I write and create comes from my audience and is fed back to the audience. When that audience is a local audience from a place like Kells, where history reverberates in the buildings, it makes it really, really special. Not only for me as an artist, not only for the extraordinary creative team who've come here from all over Ireland, and for Fishamble, a Dublin-based theatre company, but also, most explicitly, for the audience. When they see their town, their stories, premiering here in this magnificent building, it really offers a kind of great sense of validation and a great sense of being part of the Irish community of arts and history and storytelling. So it really is an invaluable programme. And what it does is it allows a professional artist like me to meet and connect with other brilliant artists, not only within the community, but who are now perhaps working and living in other places outside Kells. For example, this film has been made with a local photographer and filmmaker, Barry Cronin, who I've met through my work here in Kells. There's a fabulous song at the centre of this play, written by a brilliant local musician, Michael Brunnock. And I met Michael through a project that was supported by Kells Creative Placemaking here back in 2015 in Kells. And because of my relationship with Michael, I've now met and started to work with a plethora of musicians and artists, not only from Meath, but from all over the country. And it has really shaped the way I think about my work and the way I make my work now. And just to finish, I'd like to kind of say that as a member of a community, I live just 10 minutes outside Kells. You can really feel an energy in the town now. You can really feel a sense of real celebration and empathy in the town as we all kind of connect with each other and connect with our stories. And there's this kind of great sense of pride and hope for the town. And more artists are coming into the town. We have brilliant festivals, Gutgaffa, Type Trail, Hinterland, but there are other small artistic events happening outside them now. There's music sessions in the local book market cafe. There's just this sense that the town is kind of growing in its whole appreciation of itself. And I did a wonderful performance in the hall at Christmas called Hark that was curated and produced by a film and production company called Soft that included amazing musicians and artists from the county of Meath. And what was really special about it was to see the Kells Silver Band playing outside, see the local circus acts playing outside for audiences during COVID as they made their way into the building. And friends and neighbours and colleagues of mine came to this show. And one particular moment that really moved me was when I recognised a friend in the audience who works at a local reception centre for refugees, and I saw that she had taken not only her friends and family but some members of that community to this event at Christmas time. And I just thought, this is a diverse, generous, progressive, contemporary community, and I'm really lucky to live in the heart of it and to be able to connect with it in this way and tell the stories. So I hope that gives you a flavour of just how important and vital programmes such as these are for artists and audiences alike. Thanks a million for this opportunity.
Right, so if there's any questions, or we can take some questions from the floor, if anyone has any questions or anything they'd like to say. Declan.
Firstly, thanks to the panel. I'm really relieved that you were able to bring. I'm really relieved that you were able to bring Deirdre in remotely to us as well.
Great.
For me, my name is Declan Gorman. I'm a theatre artist, and I'm based just across the border from you in North County Dublin in Fingal. And in a way, I've been really enjoying the last day or two, but the missing link for me actually was another theatre artist. There's probably a few around, but I haven't spotted any. So just to hear Deirdre talking about the contribution that a theatre artist can make and a storyteller can make but also the benefit that the theatre artist as a citizen, as a resident, can also garner from it. It sort of completes a circle. But, you know, because I think that much of the conversations over the last 2 days have been about, I suppose, what the majority of this was about, really inspiring stories of how communities have come together with artists and with local authorities and with the Arts Council in many cases and Creative Ireland. So multi-agency approaches, but very much led by communities or based on genuine community consultation, can actually transform the very spirit of a town. Yesterday we heard about the wonderful quote came up, a few people re-quoted it afterwards, how the morale of the town had lifted. And Mark, you talked about pride in the town and the difference between 10 years ago and now. But the question I'd like to pose, and Mark, you might have the answer, you appear to have the answer, is about the absentee landlord and about the one thing that I think we've been sidestepping around in any of the sessions I've been at has been that old issue of money and greed. Tom Dowling this morning talked about how sometimes, you know, plans to develop towns and so on can be inhibited by petty jealousies and, you know, small committees and things like that, which I think you've done an amazing job of overcoming that. But I think a more difficult one is the absentee landlord, or even the local landlord, the people who actually have bought properties precisely to let them decay, precisely so that they will rot, precisely so that they can build something dreadful in its place, because they come from a time and from a tradition and I suppose a mindset that is disrespectful of culture and heritage. And it seems to me that what I'm kind of getting from these very positive contributions is that there is an actually altered and changed mindset post-COVID, but even prior to that, based on the kind of work that you're doing, that there's actually a groundswell of people power, of people actually do not want to live in towns that are being let rot and decay by landlords. But how do you channel that, and how do you actually get access to those houses? How do you persuade those people that are only interested in making money, that in actual fact the civic pride of a town is a bigger thing than mere money?
Well, if you want, I can say, like when we started out 10 years ago, we took on maybe one building on the street, and that building then showed up visually in the building next to it. There was a knock-on effect. It showed it up. Like this one building would look really good. The next building looked shabby. Then the person who owned maybe the tall building down said, oh, geez, I better do something about my property. Yeah. They did it, and then they showed up the other two. Yeah. So there's a knock-on effect by showing what it could be. It put pressure on them. And then the auctioneers put pressure on them. And because there's a groundswell of all these 65 derelict properties, by getting permission, by going through solicitors, by going through auctioneers, we started to take away these buildings that were derelict and unsightly. And doing that, the price of property in Kells has gone up. The amount of, if you said 10 years ago, where will I go for food in Kells? Maybe two options. You had a hotel and you had a pub to serve food. Now you've got cafes, now you've got bakeries, now you've got places you want to go and stop and visit. One of the retail excellence guy who came to solve our own problems says, what Kells need is small boutique shops, shops that people will travel to. You don't want to have a Penny's, you don't want to have a Tesco's, you want to have small boutique shops that turns it into a place that you want to visit, you want to go and have a coffee, you want to walk around the street, you want to engage and go to a play, or you want to go to see an exhibition. You make it a quality experience, and that's what's helped transform the town in property-wise. So there's not many of these derelict sites or landlord-owned properties that are left there to rot away, because people are buying them. So the prices went up a little, but the town looks good. You know. Yeah, I think you have to be seen to do it to shame them into it.
Okay.
Does that answer it, does it?
I think so. I think we've 1 minute left. I've been told there if there's any other queries or questions or comments. No? Well, thank you all very much for coming to listen to us today. We're delighted to be here. And there's so many people that we could thank. I wouldn't know where to start in terms of the community of Kells. And as we said, it is, it's because we're very fortunate as a local authority to have this community in Kells that's so driven and so committed to what we're doing. So we'd love to see you all in Kells. Hinterland Festival is on the weekend of the 23rd of June.
And it's the launch of the Type Trail.
And it's the launch of the Type Trail that night, which runs for
Come
6
along.
weeks.
There's always pink prosecco, strawberries and cream, and artisan cake. So that'll
So
entice
look
you.
at,
That's it. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.